Hi everyone, welcome back to the Sarai Show. It's very early in the morning, and uh, today is a day without immigrants. And I know that a lot of you were wondering just if you should participate or not. Some people were asking, does it actually make a difference? Will skipping work, school, or shopping for one day make any real difference? And uh, I'm not here to convince you with my opinions. I actually just want to share the facts of the just everything I have learned these past few days, because honestly, I was wondering the same thing. So I did some research from farm workers to civil rights activists to immigration workers, people just like us, common people, have shut down industries, forcing policy changes and, of course, making history, which is pretty cool. Uh, and so today, A Day Without Immigrants is happening. And a lot of you are ready to participate, which is very appreciated. But then there are some of you that are on the fence. And honestly, I don't blame you. I understand why a lot of protests have started strong, but then they tend to fizzle out, they are ignored, or they just don't lead to any real change. It's very discouraging. But also, I feel like American I feel like Americans are pretty funny when it comes to advocacy. On one hand, we pride ourselves on being like this land of the free where people can protest and, yeah, demand change and unite. But then on the other, there's like this weird, deep resistance to movements that challenge the status quo, especially when marginalized communities are the ones leading the charge, which is almost always the case. Um, I don't know why. As Americans, we love romanticizing past movements, but then we hate supporting them in real time when it actually matters the most. Uh, Also, America has this culture where it's very like pull yourself by your bootstraps type of thing. And that's good. I mean, it's a good message, but it also makes some people worry about themselves and themselves only, and they don't really want to demand change together. Uh, and you can actually do both of those. You don't have to pick, it's possible. And the thing is, when you're advocating against these powerful entities like the government or corporations, it's really all you have. It's the only way that you'll have a chance in winning. And it's incredibly difficult, yes, to unite people when people hate one another so much, especially like today. But trying, right? We're trying. uh, and then another thing is, I see a lot of Americans just like, oh, let's get a bunch of guns for self defense, and then let's get a bunch of more guns in case the government turns on us. What are you talking about? The government owns bigger guns. If they pick a fight with you, they are going to win. You are going to lose. I promise, every single time. But there is a weapon that could work. It's not a gun. Let's try to learn from our own history. And that weapon is uniting people, fighting together in the forms of boycotts, strikes, um, building conversations among the diverse communities that our country has to offer that actually amplifies the message of the protests. And so I want to kind of prove that by using historical evidence that shows that when marginalized communities unite and strategically disrupt the system, they tend to win. um, and in order to do that, we really need to go back in time. And I want to talk about one of the most one of the longest but most effective boycotts in American history, and that is the Delano Grape Strike. Started in 1965, lasted 5 years. And I know that happened a while ago, but it's just good to know these things. It keeps you informed. And so what happened was farm workers in California were being exploited. Go figure. They worked in extreme heat. They had no breaks. They were paid almost nothing. And so Filipino workers, also farmers, walked off the fields first. Way to go, Filipinos. And soon after that, Mexican farm workers joined in. Now, you got to keep in mind that up until this point, farm owners were using like these tactics where they were pitting different ethnic groups against each other to weaken the strikes. Classic move. We're seeing that today. We're actually seeing that within the Latino community too. It's quite sad. But anyways, so all of that changed when Larry Itliong and Philip Vera Cruz, I hope I'm pronouncing those right, two Filipino labor leaders, they reached out to Dolores Huerta and Cesar Chavez, asking Mexican American farm workers to unite, to join them, to stand together. And so what happened next was so much bigger than what anyone expected. The power of solidarity rippled across the entire country. Families stopped buying grapes. Black activists marched 300 miles with the farm workers from Delano to Sacramento. Even Yemeni workers, Native American communities, they're both pretty similar with state-led oppression too. So that's probably why they stood in support. Religious leaders, they were preaching the movement's message of justice and dignity. What they weren't doing was kissing the president's ass. So you have these Filipino and Mexican farm workers who were once very divided. They come together, they build something stronger, a movement rooted in collective power. And this was more than a labor strike. It was actually a vision for what real unity can do. It really did. Power to the people, exactly the way that it should be. And this, of course, worked because, well, money. It cost the grape industry millions because stores and customers stopped buying them or buying from them. And after half a decade of pressure, so after 5 years of pressure, they won. They want better wages. They want union contracts, legal protections. This strike literally changed labor laws. So farm workers who were once at the very bottom of society's power structure forced an entire industry to change just because, well, they refused to participate in a system that exploited them. And they did all of this without the internet. Very impressive. Now I want to move on to 1955, Montgomery, Alabama. Most of us have heard the classic story of Rosa Parks refusing to give up her seat on a segregated bus. But a lot of people don't talk about the rest of it, which is back then, Black riders made up 75% of Montgomery's bus customers. So they were the majority of the clients of buses. When Rosa Parks was arrested, Black community leaders, and yeah, that did include Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., organized a mass boycott, and this lasted for over a year. Black residents refused to take public transportation. They walked everywhere. They walked miles to work. They created carpool systems, and that financially devastated the bus industry. Very simple. That was a consequence. It wasn't simple to do, though. The bus system lost so much money that businesses started feeling that economic pressure, and the Supreme Court ruled bus segregation unconstitutional. And this victory wasn't really just about buses. It was it was a turning point for what we know as or for what we know now as the civil rights movement. So yeah, there you have it. When people who are funding a system refuse to be a part of that system, in this case the Black community, that system is going to collapse. So yeah, change takes time, but disrupting these forces actually forces people in power to listen to us. And again, they did all of this without the internet. Very impressive once again. Now, I kind of want to bring this full circle. Uh, this isn't the first time a day without immigrants has happened. It happened back in 2006, and here's what went down. The US government was pushing for stricter immigration laws, just like today, targeting Latino workers, of course, just like today. In response, hundreds of thousands of immigrants stayed home. They did not work, they did not spend their money. And the result, of course, was that restaurants, farms, factories, a lot of industries struggled. Businesses lost millions of dollars in just one day. Um, so while I was graduating high school, class of '06, the Day Without Immigrants protest was taking place, uh, which was a direct response to something called HR 4437, also known as the Sensenbrenner Bill. Stupid name, so long. Which was, it was basically just a harsh anti-immigration proposal that would have done so much damage. It would have made being undocumented a felony instead of just a civil offense. It would have criminalized anyone who helped undocumented immigrants, to include churches, social workers. Where have we heard that before? They're trying to bring that back. And it would have increased border security, of course, with more walls and militarization. So yeah, Trump didn't come up with the whole build the wall idea. And the bill actually passed the House of Representatives, but then these massive nationwide protests and economic disruption stopped it from becoming law, because these protests, they mobilized millions. There were marches. There were over 140 cities participating in these marches. Economic boycotts were shutting down businesses across the entire country. Uh, and even lawmakers who supported HR 4437 saw the backlash and they started backing away. The Senate, feeling the heat of the protests, of course, rejected HR 4437. And instead, they tried to, like, I don't know, introduce a compromise bill where a guest worker program and then this path to citizenship. I don't know. But of course, that didn't happen either, because Republicans and Democrats just couldn't agree. And it led to a deadlock, of course. The 2006 Day Without Immigrants didn't actually lead to immediate immigration reform, because let's face it, we just got a little lazy, right? Maybe we need to do more than one day. I'm just saying. But at least it stopped extreme anti-immigrant legislation that was on its way in its tracks. Uh, so the fight wasn't over, but it bought some time. It forced politicians to rethink how they should approach immigration policy. Uh, so that brings us to today. And I honestly think that Trump is hoping that no one remembers what happened back in 2006. And he's kind of right, because I didn't remember. I was too busy doing whatever it is that, I don't know, seniors were doing back then. Probably nothing cool. We didn't have cell phones, smartphones. So the government learned some lessons, and they'll likely try to use new tactics to oppress us better this time. But we also learned lessons. We learned that even one day of economic disruption forced a national conversation on this. It didn't lead to immediate immigration reform, but it proved the economic power of the immigrant. And that's the biggest takeaway. That's the point. Boycotts don't fail because they don't work. They fail when people stop too soon. So if you're on the fence about participating in a day without immigrants today, just try to remember, or any protest, try to remember, history proves that economic disruption works, that every major civil rights movement has used boycott strikes to win. The only reason some fail is because people just don't follow through. Uh, Not enough motivation. Now, if you're someone who actually wants to participate, but you just can't because you can't afford to miss work or school, I get it. I understand. Not everyone has the ability to take that risk, but you can still help simply by not getting in the way. Do not attack protesters. Amplify the message in your own way. Post, I don't know, post on social media, share this history, talk to people, support immigrant owned businesses. Bear, no. If you can't boycott, you can redirect your money, and that's powerful too. Educate others. A movement will not grow unless people know why it matters. Because at the end of the day, nothing happens, like nothing changes if people do nothing. Pretty obvious. But when we're united, we can shut down entire industries and force change to happen. If this particular cause does not resonate with you, that's perfectly fine. There are numerous other pressing issues you can choose from. Trust me, you'll find something that impacts you. um, the point is, we really need to use the same exact strategies that politicians and corporations use all the freaking time, which is they unite, they communicate, and they implement changes that serve their interests. And we should be doing that too. So yeah, that's all I have. That was a lot of talking. Let me know in the comments if you plan on participating today. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next one.